So hello, my name is Joy Berge, and I am Vice Chair of the Environmental Advisory Commission in Springfield Township, Montgomery County. Welcome. This is our first webinar, so we're delighted that you are interested in here. And what a perfect date for a webinar on solar power. We're just 3 days before the summer solstice. Our presenters this evening are two amazing women who run Solarize Southeast PA. I want to stress that they do this as unpaid, impartial volunteers. They're not working for any installer. So they will guide you through what can otherwise be a daunting process of getting solar panels and the myriad decisions that go with it. My Zoom background, as you may be able to see, shows my own pole-mounted panels in my backyard in Flowertown. They track the sun bidirectionally every day, so they face the eastern horizon in the morning, and then they come around and they lean up towards the sun at noon, and then they follow down to the western horizon and then reset themselves. They're very cool. I got them in 2016, just when the Solarize concept was being born, and oh, how I wish I had had Solarize volunteers to guide me through the process. A few words about our presenters. We have two. Minal Ravel has been actively promoting climate solutions for years. She helped form the Northwest Philly Solar Co-op to encourage residential solar. She remains a catalyst for Montgomery County's Ready for 100 effort, a group of 12 municipalities in the county so far, including Springfield, who have committed to 100% clean electricity by 2035. Woohoo! And thanks to our Springfield commissioners, we were the first municipality in the county to make that commitment. So Minal leads Solarize Southeast PA. Marion Biddle is also presenting. She's also passionate about solar energy, analyzing data, helping people move forward with their installations, with the goal of always increasing the total amount of solar on the grid. Marion served on the board of Northwest Philly Solar Co-op, and now with Minal is leading Solarize Southeast PA. So our heartfelt thanks to Minal and Marion for their generosity of time and talents and leadership. And I have one more pair of thank yous to two people who have done a lot behind the scenes to make this happen. My fellow member of the Environmental Advisory Commission, Chris Richter, and to Brandon Ford, who's assistant to the township manager here in Springfield. Thanks, guys. Before I turn it over to Marion and Minal, a few housekeeping notes. So we're going to turn off your audio and video during the presentation. We'll turn it back on at the end for Q&A, but we encourage you to use the chat facility to ask questions and share information during the presentation. Most of you probably have a chat box along the bottom menu bar in your Zoom meeting. Maybe on your phone it's in a different place, but look for the chat box. And again, as I said a few minutes ago, if we are recording the webinar, and we're happy to send you a link to the recording tomorrow, but we need to have your email address. So you can send your email address to the screen, on chat to the whole group, or if you want a little more privacy, send it just to me privately. I'm Joy Berge. So now, finally, we'll send it over to Minal to start the presentation.
Thanks, Joy. I'm going to share my screen now. So it looks like this is a company, but it's really Marion and I. And our point is we are neighbors pushing the clean energy agenda, and we want to help all of our neighbors transition. We started because I was active in the Ready for 100 effort in the Philadelphia suburbs, and they kept mentioning Solarize Greater Media. So, but that was just one town. So we kind of trying to take all of our townships in Southeast PA and help them. It's mainly, the people behind it is mainly myself, Marion, and Jim Wiley, who is our Sierra Club interface. And we basically help our neighbors increase their energy literacy. I'll cover that in a bit. We'll explain how rooftop systems are sized and priced. we can give you, each of you, your own assessment of your roof, and we can connect you with a locally owned vetted installer. And we continue to support each of the Ready for 100 teams. So even if it's not just your house, if it's your borough hall or your church, we can talk about that. And of course, we continue advocating for better policies at the state and local level. So that's what all we do. And we started this name, Solarize Southeast PA, last year based on interest from the EAC in Havertown. We had about 50 people interested, and that's what we started off. This year, we have working relationships with 5 installers. We are well, we lost our marketing energy over the spring because we didn't go to very many fairs and stuff. So this is our second such presentation this year. We had hoped to do like a dozen already. So we still have a half a year to go. And that second bullet means if the system is installed this year in 2020, you can take 26% federal tax credit off the bill when you file your 2020 returns. We are helping people in Montgomery County, Chester County, and Bucks. The Haverford team learned from their experience last year, and they're off and running, organizing Solarize Delco themselves. If you're from Philadelphia, we can help you, but also there's another group working in Philly called Solarize Philly, and that's led by the Philadelphia Energy Authority. Regardless of where you are, like Joy even asked me to help out her niece in Colorado, I think. Our goal is to educate neighbors and make sure they get a system they're happy with, regardless of who actually does the work. Now, why are we doing this? Well, we want to get to squeeze that dirty fuel funnel, so to speak, reduce our fossil fuels. So just by switching from fossil fuels to electricity, is that light gray. You can just, that is inherently efficient, and you can drop about 30%. When you then invest in efficient appliances, you reduce a lot more. So then you consider solar or wind for the remaining. And that's how we're gonna squeeze fossil fuels out of our life over the next few years. And this next slide is a little bit about how we're gonna do that at the household level. Our applications are listed there: heating our water, heating our space, drying our clothes, and cooking. Some of us forget that the car is also fossil fuel powered. So it's a combination for most of us of gas and electric, and we're gonna cover that. Our electricity use is measured in kilowatt hours and gas in 100 cubic feet. And this is a little excerpt from the PICO bill showing the month's use for both. We're gonna ask each of you for your PICO bill, and what we're looking for is this bit of amount, this bar chart and the data after it. The bar chart shows us which months your electricity usage peaks. We can kind of tell a story about that. And then the other number we're most interested in is the one on the bottom right, your total annual kilowatt hour usage. That means even if your usage fluctuated over the months, in a full year, you used about 12,000 in this example. That helps us see if the panels on your roof can generate something close to that 12,000. A little blip on the left here helps you translate the electricity used to pounds of carbon. If you were wanting to check your carbon footprint, that's the math you would use. Similarly with gas, we see that in this case, they mainly use it in the cooler months. And we would look at that last number, the 868 for the annual usage, and try to reduce that in various ways. If your usage looks high, again, the Pennsylvania average is about 10,000 kilowatt hours of electricity in a year. If your usage looks high, we're gonna ask you what is using a lot, and we're gonna suggest that you contact PICO for an energy assessment. It's just $25. And they really change out all your light bulbs and do other stuff like list where the leaks are in your house. And they also list contractors you can work with. What's our role in it? We work with you. We do the initial roof assessment. We compare it with your current usage. We would introduce you to an installer. They're the ones you sign the contract with, and they're the ones that provide you a formal proposal. But we continue to stay in the picture in case there are issues. That's basically it. The installer does the bulk of the work. So if you're interested, and we'll be repeating this, you can send your info to the contact page on our website. So what is it we do to check your roof potential? We look at the roof, see how much sun or shade falls on your roof. We translate that to how many panels and how many watts. And then we can do a back of the envelope dollars also, but again, we're not the ones installing, so really it's the final answer is from the installer. We're just giving you a ballpark. And here's an example of what we would do if we were given the address of 811 Powder Mill Road. We'd look at it on Google Maps, which you've all done. I see that there's not much shade from the tree on the south there. We would look at another program called Google Sunroof, and that shows us that if we were to put panels, we would put it on the more orange sides of the roof rather than the purple, which would be the shadier side. Generally, the west and southwest roofs get more sun. And then we translate that golden glow to how many panels? 26 in this example. So that's what we do just to get the conversation going with you all. We can also do some math and say the 26 panels, installers use phrases like system size or annual generation or system cost. So this is an explanation of how we get to that. So if your annual generation ends up being 8,700, but in the example you were using 12,000, you could try to use less energy, or you can decide that, well, maybe you can spend on, instead of 305 watts a panel, you could invest in 335 or 365 watts a panel, and the math will go up and you can have more electricity with the same roof space. Systems are generally priced by the watt. I've given an example of 310, and again, that's just an example. That's when you get a proposal is when we'll see what it is, but it should be close to that. So even though you pay, in this case, 24 grand now-ish, or when the install is done, you would get about 6,000 back next April when you file your tax return. So your net cost would be 18. That's just a quick assessment, but if your electric service needs an upgrade, or you have a really, really steep roof, or like Joy, you have a shady roof and you decide to go with a ground mount system, it's different cost for that. What we talked about is basically a roof mounted system. If you have a lot of trees and you end up losing power for days on end, you may want to consider spending extra for battery storage. Again, those are options if that's needed. Most people don't get them. If we and the installer would check your roof to make sure it's not too old and not in not too bad a shape. But if your roof does need repair over time, there are services available to remove and reinstall the system. So 3 years down the line, if there's a leak, that's an option. So there's just always additional charges, I guess. How do we pay for it? A lot of folks just pay from their personal savings. Some people take out a home equity loan. And again, every installer we work with does offer different loan packages. with whichever financing entity they work with. So oftentimes they price it so that the monthly payment is close to what you currently pay on your electric bill. So it's not $400 a month if you're only paying $100 on average. It would be close to your current. So the goal is to make it affordable. Some people talk about solar with no money down. It's called a lease system, and we don't recommend it for residential systems. It's used for commercial projects. With residential systems, it gets complicated when you try to sell the house, whether like you own it or, so anyway, it gets complicated legally. So we recommend people own it. So it goes with the house, like your heating system would or something. There is a concept called net metering with Pico. Marion's going to tell you more about that, but basically on a fine sunny day and you're not home using all that electricity, what your panels generate is sent back to the grid, and used by your neighbors and other people, and Pico does that as part of their work, and you get a credit for it. That's what net metering is. So that's one way you can pay for it, because you get that credit every month. So you could still be frugal with your electric use even after solar to get that credit a bit more. I mentioned this earlier, but solar can go on where you worship, where you work, and even if you live in a HOA, we may need to convince the board, and I'm willing to come speak to your board if needed. And now comes what the meter looks like. Does Marion want to explain this?
Yeah. So once you get solar, you end up with 2 meter readings. It used to be that you actually would get 2 meters, but as of 2017, which is actually just when I got my system, they started doing single meters, which could read both ways. So what you're seeing here is the top row is, it says from the grid. So that is coming from Pico. That's just like it always was. And the to the grid is what your solar system is giving back when you don't need it in your house. So in this particular example, you can see that Pico on the bottom says total kilowatt used, and it's 112, which matches what they are sending to you. But you, in this case, sent 903 kilowatt hours to them, which means you had an excess production of 791 kilowatt hours. So what happens to that? Well, let's go to net metering, Right, so anytime you have excess solar production, it gets sent back to the grid. And like Meenal said, it's technically because electrons don't really understand it. They just go to your neighbors. But as far as your credit, it's whatever your meter says. So if at the end of the month, the net amount from Pico is positive, which means they gave you more than you gave them, then you would pay your bill just like normal, but it would be significantly reduced since you did send them back some. Now, if your net amount from Pico is negative, which means you gave them more than they gave you, then you'll have zero cost for electricity that month, and they will roll over that amount for the next month. And they call it banked. So what that means is that the next month, if you don't generate as much as you use, you would have some credits from the month before. Then at the end of the fiscal year, which is May for Pico, they will take the excess banked kilowatt hours and pay you at what they call the price to compare, and they will zero out your bank. So then you could either get a check, I've heard, although I've always gotten a credit on my bill. But anyway, next. So this was actually my bill, and as you can see, I was paying zero for electricity. So that was fun. But we're going to tell you right up front, that's not true for everyone. It depends how big your system is. Mine is, mine covers all of my requirements, but it still can make sense if maybe it covers 90%. But no matter what, the bill will decrease because you are generating solar electricity. Some of it you're just using yourself. And there will be some months, pretty much with any system, where you will have extra to send back. Next. Okay, this is how Pico reports it to you. So there's this message center, and they basically, like I told you, they called it the banked. So bank distribution kilowatt was 0 because this was after the May bill, so they had just zeroed it out. And then there's that 791 that we saw on the original bill. And they've put that in the bank because that was extra, and they're going to have that ready for next month. And this credit that's actually money is the credit that was paid in May. And that goes against and basically pays your monthly bill until it runs out. And this is just how the whole bill looks. So on page 1, you can see on the left there is the way the payment now looks. And then this is the combination. Up top, you see the in and out meters. You can see that message center, and then you can see that you know, the house is still using electricity, which is what all these bars are. And their system doesn't actually show you the solar. So we're going to look at how we could see the solar from a different system. Now I added this because there's 3 different technologies really for panels, and in the old days they only had the first one, which was panels were all connected in series, and if one panel was shaded, then all the panels kind of got reduced to that level. And now there are things called microinverters, which every single panel has something called that converts the energy from DC to AC, and AC is what your house needs. So, but they all work independently. And then a even more newer type is the optimizer, which is on each panel, and it still stays DC up there, but it is able to, each panel gives a different amount of electricity based on what sun is available. So needless to say, the example of Joy actually has these panels connected in series, but she's okay because her panel is moving and following the sun. But most people these days, if it's just on a rooftop, will have microinverters or optimizers. And the people that we work with, they use both, and it kind of depends on the situation which one is better. But they are both good solutions. But what I'm going to show you now is a couple pictures, and these are from SolarEdge, which is a company that makes the optimizers. And this is an older system, so it has 2 meters. The thing on the right there, the white thing, is an inverter. And that is what is taking all the power from your solar panels and turning it into AC power, which goes into your panel. The first thing that happens is your house uses the electricity straight from the sun, and anything extra will go back to the grid. The next picture, you know, okay, so this is showing all the different panels, and on the left is panels that it's sunny day, so they're all producing, and the bright blue is producing at the maximum. The one on the right is on a cloudy day, and as you can see, it's like little puff clouds, and the sun is blocking certain panels. But because they have optimizers, some of them are still producing a lot of energy. And if these were in series, they would all be black. So that's why it's important. Next.
Oh, Marion, where would people see these lovely pictures?
Well, okay, so there's a monitoring system. Now this, I have to tell you, this is for SolarEdge, and if you had microinverters, it would look different, but they have similar type things. But there's an app that you can either see on the computer, or you can actually download it to your phone, and these are options that you can see. So the next slide is what people look at more likely, and the one on the left is one day showing, you know, from the nighttime where there's nothing, and then it goes up, and all the green is energy being produced by your panels. It might be, and the little jagged parts are where it got a little cloudy. And then on the right, it's just gathering all the data, and that's showing you what happened each day. So during this week, you know, it was probably a cloudy day on that first day, and then it got more sunny. And this system has no, this is just looking at the solar. So can you go to the next one? Because this is also just looking at the solar. So this is showing how, you know, you might look like for a month. And the variation is just simply how much sun you were getting and how cloudy it was. So that's why that varies. Then on the right there, you can see over time, this system's been up. This was 3 years worth of data. And each of those different colors is for the different months during each year. And so you can also see that each month could be different. And again, it's just, you know, the weather and sun. So now the next one I want to show you is a little more complex. This is an option that you can purchase, and it's a monitoring system, and it actually connects into your electrical panel and is showing you how much you are using in your own house. So the red is being used by the house. And you can see the little lumpy things at the beginning. Those are the refrigerator cycling through. And then you turn the electric kettle on, and then maybe you have a second cup of tea. And then what happens is the sun comes out. And the blue means that you are using it, your house is using the electricity directly from the sun. And the green is excess. So that is going back to the grid. Then the sun goes down, and then you're back to using power at night. Maybe it was a cold day and you turn the heater on, or maybe that's your electric car, or, you know, there could be a lot of different things. But it's sort of an interesting addition because it really makes you think about your usage. And so I have it at my house and I love it, but most people, I would say, don't do it. But it all depends on your personality and whether you like to look at this stuff. So if you're interested, you want to get an evaluation, the best way to do it is to go to this website, solarizesepa.com/contact. And what you'll see there is a contact form where you put your name, address. Well, then you get a choice of, because you may just want to ask us questions, that's fine. You'll have a choice to give us your address if you want an assessment. If you would like, you can also sign a waiver, which would allow us to talk to PECO to get your electric bill and data related to your electricity usage. And that's all on that contact form. And it comes automatically to us, and then we would reach out to you. If you want to email us directly, there's the email, and we would get back to you. And that is actually Meenal's phone number. So.
We could take questions. Yeah, we could take questions. The rest of the slide deck is really just photos of examples in the neighborhood. So this is a pitched roof. This is a flat roof. This is a multi-plane roof. Wouldn't it be nice if all those row homes had panels instead of just the one? This is a very steep one, and the backside is tilted up. This is an example of a house that had a lot more room on the roof, but they were frugal, the usage was low, so they only got the 16 panels. And these guys use a lot, and they packed it in as much as they could.
They have a Tesla. So that was one reason they wanted to be able to charge their car.
And this was on a slate roof.
We have a roof question, Meenal and Mary. Someone asks, how new does your roof need to be?
It's not a fixed number. It's really looking at how, what quality it's in. Obviously no leaks, but basically somebody does climb on it and assess the roof. So if it's not just, it's 8 years old, you got to replace it. There's no such answer. And the flip side is when you do have panels, your roof lasts longer because the UV rays don't reach the roof, they just reach the panel.
And we are not accountants, but you should check with your accountant, because it's my understanding that if you have to make replacements or repairs to the portion of the roof where the panels go, you may be able to get the federal tax credit on the repair costs. But we are not accountants. You need to ask your accountant that.
Yeah, it's directly related to the solar.
This is Ron Sellentown. I'm familiar with a lot of solar installations. No, you don't get the ITC. You don't get the federal tax credit for the roof part of it. I also want to mention it is about 10 years is that number, special number for if your roof is at least 10 years old, you should get it replaced, because you can only put solar on one layer of roof shingles. If there's 2 layers on there, you can't put it on there. That's going to be rejected. So it'd be best to replace the roof at that point. And it's not cheap to have the roof, to have the modules come off and to replace the roof and put them back up again. There's a cost associated with that. So you really do need to think about whether it makes sense to replace the roof at the time. Sorry, I just wanted to mention that.
No, that's fine. That makes
Thank
sense.
you, Ron.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ron. There's another roof question. Are there any issues if there is a fire? What would the firefighters do to access through the roof? How does the installation, separate, I think. How does the installation impact the roof warranty? So do you want to talk about fire and then roof warranty?
Sure. Most systems, well, not most, all systems are designed so that there's a space on the one side of the roof for the firemen to climb up. It's called the setback. Someone can climb to the top of the roof. What would the firefighters do? I believe first they would need to shut off the solar so that they don't fry themselves. And they know that the switch is usually outside by your meter. And how does it affect the roof warranty? A lot of roofers get concerned that, gee, if you put solar, the warranty is void, but
well, the solar companies will warrant the work that they do.
What?
The solar companies warrant the work that they do and where they have made penetration. So they're
34.
yeah, they will, if there's a leak related to any of their work, they would warrant that. And you would read that in your contract. Include that in your contract.
If I may.
Yeah, go ahead, Ron.
So there's, if you're going to get a new roof anyway, there's 2 ways that can be done. Sometimes the installer can work with the roofer, and as you put a new roof down and the tar paper, then they could put down the L brackets, the anchors onto that roof surface before the asphalt goes down. And then the roofer is totally cool with that. Like, hey, I'm putting the shingles on top of all of that, so it's protected and the full warranty goes through. Other times it may be more applicable to put, or even an existing roof, to put it right on, of course, the roof shingle, and that's perfectly fine too. But sometimes the warranty, maybe you should really talk to the roofer about it. They'll at best maybe not warranty the area of which that's been covered by the solar array. But by and large, I mean, I've been doing this for decades now, and there really are very few cases where there's leaks. So it's not really too much of an issue as long as the installer has good reputation. They'll do a good job. I've really heard of very few leaks. Getting to the setback part that Amina was talking about, we don't have really a requirement. It's going to really be, I'm not sure how our township deals with it, but there's issues about how far the array can go to the edge and to the ridge and to the eave of the roof. And you'll see a lot of places where it's right up against the edge. And that, of course, we want to get as much solar as we can on the roof. There's some talk of a lot of townships, they may require a 2 or 3 foot setback. I'll tell you, in New Jersey right now, that has gone into, I believe, law at this point. There's a significant setback over there. So that's going to just be coming down the road for us, which only means that, hey, get solar now because you'll get more solar on the roof.
Thanks.
You do have the north side, you have the other sides of the roof that are not covered, of course.
Yeah, but unfortunately, the way these codes are going, that doesn't count for some, I don't agree with it, but that seems to how it's going. They want to have at least, and it all depends on the different configuration of the roof, but they may want to have a pathway they can walk up that roof on the side, and be able to get to the roof. It's strange too, because I hear now that, they want access to the roof so they can cut a hole for venting during a fire. But I hear that is not even a technique that's very favorable anymore for putting out a fire. So I don't know why they're so, anal about this stuff.
I want to say that we have a special guest here, Dara Bortman of Exact Solar. We would have connected you all to them, most likely. So there, I see on the chat that Dara is saying that the flashings that they now use are recognized to not affect the roof warranty. So,
Great.
hey, Dara.
There's a question about meters. Question is, if you have a dual meter system, can you get switched to a single meter system? And is there a cost?
That's a good question, but we could certainly get the answer for you.
Why would one want to do that? I mean, you don't have to do that.
No, you don't, but maybe they want to.
It's from someone who has solar. Steve, do you want to weigh in? Kevin?
Well, the cost would be the cost of the electrician.
Sorry, this is Steven. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I was having trouble getting off of mute. What was the question again?
Well, it was your question. You said the meters, I'm sorry.
In terms of the fire, the
dual meter.
Oh, the
If you
dual
have
meters.
a dual
Yeah.
meter system, can you get switched to a single meter system, and is there a cost? And the question from the
Yes.
panel was, why would you want to do that?
Just because I don't like having 2 meters on the back of my house.
Yeah, so the cost would be this. It wouldn't cost anything to get the new meter, but you will have then an extra, box there, and if you don't like that, that will cost you to get it removed.
Okay, I gotcha. Okay.
I also want to point to people that there's a lot of really good information being shared in the chat, some follow-up to these questions. So we're just asking the questions, but definitely read that. There's a good discussion about the federal tax credit and roof replacements. Okay, here's a good one. Any insights as to whether the tax credit will be renewed in 2021?
I don't think anyone knows, but I think it probably depends who's elected.
Dara Bortman says, vote.
Vote.
We'll let you draw your own conclusions. I think you mentioned, Meenal, it's 26% this year, and then it goes down to 22% next year.
That's right.
And I say if you want to see these credits continue, obviously contact your elected officials to say, I support extending credits for this. So.
It's possible there may be, I know this was done in the commercial, there may be, and Dara, maybe you know this, an extension because of COVID-19 that no work really could have been done for several months, so that maybe extend that 26% out a few months into the next year, so it may shift a little bit. I know there was some talk about that for commercial systems.
I haven't heard that for residential.
Have we gotten through all the questions? If you typed in a question and it hasn't been answered either in the chat, excuse me, or in the discussion, please speak up.
I think somebody had asked what type of maintenance is required. Did we cover that? I see that question in the chat.
Right. Maintenance, not a whole lot at all. That's why you have that app on your phone. I check it once in a while to see if somehow one of the panels is damaged by squirrels or whatever. And if they all look blue, nice and bright and blue on a sunny day, they're all performing, no need to do anything. I do go up to the roof a couple times a year just to clean out the gutters, So you could look at it, and in places that are very dusty, like India or the desert, you may need to wash them. But we get rain pretty regularly that you don't need to wash the panels. You don't need to shovel snow off of it.
And I would, Stephen, I would say, so in my experience from my panels, generally when they're first installed, the installer and the component vendor for the panels and the inverters and all of that, they will come out, they come back regularly and check stuff. I had some problems with a few of the panels early on, but they came out, they would get alerted that there was a problem, again, because they're all internet connected systems, so they
Right.
know when there's an issue. So when there was a problem, they knew when I knew, and they would come out and take care of it. I didn't have to worry about anything, and they were able to manage all of that. And in fact, they had to swap out some of the inverters on mine. That was at no cost to me within the warranted period for the panels and all the equipment. So since then, I haven't had to do anything other than to keep my internet up.
Right. That's true. That's a good point about the monitoring, that not only can you monitor, but so can the installer.
So I just want to weigh in. I had a private discussion with someone who says on the tax code issue, not to disagree with others on the call, but we have at least 2 different opinions. And the bottom line, I think, is talk to your own accountant about what you might be able to include in the tax credit.
There's no way you can include the roof repair, or replacement. I'll put money down on that.
Okay,
Unless it was an integrated roof system. So there are some technologies out there that it's roof shingles, okay, and that would count because that is an integrated part of the roof replacement. But or it's possible it could be, if you are building a structure over a car, like a carport, it's possible you might be able to include that complete structure. So that's where you can play the game. But as conventional roof replacement, no way.
Okay. Sorry, Ron, there are different opinions, but let's move on.
yeah.
Do we have other questions?
Yeah,
Joy?
somebody said, asked, does the installer handle any township permitting? All of it. That's typically what they do, the permitting with the township as well as with PICO to get the interconnection. And maybe I didn't explain what interconnection is, I realized. It's so that you are connected to the grid. So when the sun goes down in an hour or so, you still have electricity from PICO. So all of the systems we talked about are grid tied, and to tie to the grid, that action is called interconnection. So the installer generally works with PICO on getting that okay also. And I'll just warn people that's often a delay for our PICO territory. Townships are generally much swifter in the process. You just have to sign what the installer says and okay it and keep following up.
I think you should also, my experience was I actually had to pay for the permit separately. I thought that would be covered in the installer's total price. In my situation, it was not. So again, this is just one of these questions of ask many questions of your installer.
And Joy, Mino, this is Brandon with the township. If I could just chime in, not every township will have a specific solar permit. So, step 1 should definitely be to contact your township and find out specifically what permit you need to install solar panels. That would be the number 1 step. You might not necessarily need to fill out the permit yourself, but at least finding out what the permit is, what the cost for the permit would be, it would be probably the best first step in getting any kind of permitting. And then you could talk to your contractor about, are you aware of this permit, and is this cost included in the quote you gave me?
The folks we work with, it generally is included because they offer turnkey systems. But yeah, good point.
Madge Monster has a question. What about those integrated roof tiles. And she also says, I understand roof tiles versus panels are available more readily in other parts of the country. So Madge, I think what you're talking about is the roof tiles that are themselves solar generators.
I haven't seen them here. I think the last time I asked any installer, they're like, oh, it's just on the West Coast, or they're not available here. So sorry, not yet.
Not yet. Here's another great question that ties into the battery issue. What happens to excess energy during a PICO outage?
Yeah, so
Are you talking about if you're on a battery system?
Well, no, I think we're getting to that point. You know, maybe you can explain that you need a battery in order to not have your system shut down.
When you lose power, your panels still absorb the sun, but it goes nowhere because it goes nowhere unless you have a battery backup system.
Yeah, if the Pico's out, you're out.
you're out. Yeah. Yeah,
Right.
unless, right. And so that's why if you're concerned about Pico going out, you would actually need to get a battery backup system because you're grid connected, which means if your power is not coming in from Pico, then you will get cut off from even your own solar, because the solar will feed back into the line. And if there's someone out working on the line, they could get electrocuted. So they can't, that's like a hard and fast rule. So unless you have battery backup, and in that case, it would be designed to back up whatever loads you define.
But there's no issue with the panels, like, sending electricity back in, causing a fire, causing any electrical things like that. They're designed that
No, they get shut off.
if they're not tied, they get shut down. So they shut down. There's no risk in that scenario.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically a code requirement from decades ago that the inverters they need to see the grid. They need to see the sine wave coming off the grid in order to operate. They synchronize with that sine wave in order to operate. And there is a different kind of scenario if you have battery backup, that it can still disconnect from the grid, but still operates on the battery side of the house. And then continues to work with the batteries and solar still charging and discharging right there.
What? Yeah, okay. I'm gonna. Yeah,
And a question, is the battery backup quiet? I don't know the answer to that. Anybody know? I bet Dara knows.
Yes, batteries are quiet.
Yeah, no more noise than without it.
Yeah, between that and like gas backup systems, they're both very, very quiet. It's what you hear is the combustion generators going off as backups that people have.
Which you wouldn't have with a battery backup.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Just like electric cars are quieter than gasoline cars, right?
Oh, excellent. Yeah. Great set of questions. Let's see, anything else that anybody has? Someone was awake 48 hours recently with their neighbor's generator. Boy, I can relate to that. So just another advantage of clean solar energy.
Meenal, I got on a little late, but I want to make sure, because I didn't hear it when I was on, that if you do choose to go with solar, that you should go, make sure that you're back with Pico as your supplier. Many of you may have a third-party supplier, some other supplier for your electricity. And the problem with that, and you have solar, when you generate surplus, you may not get the full credit for that generation. So just want to let you know that. Make sure that got out.
Good point. We do tell everybody, but we didn't tell it that tonight till now. So if you're going with the Energy Co-op or Green Mountain Energy or somebody else, you'll have to switch back to Pico for that net metering thing to work. And again, our role is to keep answering questions, not just tonight, but ongoing, even after you have an install and if you had a question. So
Did everybody get a chance to write down the contact info for Southeast, Solarize Southeast PA? It was Mino and Marion. Anybody else need that? And we're getting, by the way, people are starting to trickle up, but we're getting lots of very nice comments about both of you, Mino and Marion, and your presentation. So thank you. Hey, folks, if you get solar, let us know if this leads to a decision. Really, there was nothing that would make us happier than that.
And if you want to entertain yourself, go to Purple House Goes Solar. And you'll see a video of my house with the solar installation. And Joy, I forget the name of yours.
Oh, so do I, but I'll send it around. So Marion made this totally cool time-lapse video with her phone. 12 hours of my solar panels on a sunny day reduced to 36 seconds. I will see if I can find it and pull it up and put it in the link. It's on YouTube.
Okay, well, thanks, Joy, for organizing this.
Oh, thank you. I want to just thank everybody again. Mino, Marion, Chris Rector, who's been quiet during this, but was the put all the technology together, and Brandon, who's been our Zoom meister tonight, Brandon Ford. So thank you, one and all.
Thank you.
Hey, Joy,
Yes, sir.
just mention meeting next week.
Oh, I forgot. So if you're from Springfield, we'd love to have you come to our Springfield Township Environmental Advisory Commission meeting. We meet the fourth Wednesday of every month. We're meeting by Zoom these days. So our next meeting is at 7 p.m. next Wednesday, June 24th. You can go to the Springfield Township website to find the Zoom link, or you can contact me, joyberge@gmail.com.
Good job, Joy.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Recording off.